This is the Critical Therapy Antidote podcast with your hosts, Jaco van Sale and Christine Stephen.
Welcome to the Critical Therapy Antidote podcast with your hosts, Jaco van Sale and Christine Stephen. We are delighted to start a series of rather serious discussions. It's discussions with brave parents whose children fell prey to gender ideology, subsequent gender dysphoria, some of whom received affirmative transgender medical treatment, and others even transitioned. Our discussions will center around the circumstances of these developments and how these parents and children survived. So as our first parent, we would like to welcome Lydia. Due to the sensitivity of the discussions we're going to have, some of our parents would like to go by pseudonyms, and because of the sensitivity, we also decided that we're only going to record and publish the audio of these interviews. Lydia, we're delighted to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. So we got a chance to hear a bit about your story before we started recording, but we'd like to kind of just start by you sharing what you shared with us, and we'll go from there. So tell us a bit about your family, your background, and what happened. What happened to your daughter?
Okay, so I am a Los Angelino. My family has 120 years of family history here. I am Ashkenazi Jew and also African American. We lived in Echo Park. My neighbors were gay men on the left of me and gay women on the right of me. And I lived close to Silver Lake. I went to a crazy hippie school. So liberal democratic thinking has been part of my whole life. I've been a liberal Democrat. My mom changed her name to Michael in the 60s. She was an artist. I lived in West Hollywood. I really feel like I should be the poster mom for transing your kid. My daughter got indoctrinated into gender and sexuality while she was a homeschooler. She was homeschooled her whole life in a theater program. She declared at the end of the day, after being there for some time, that she was queer. She was still too little to sit in the front seat of my car, so she's still sitting in the back seat. And I said, you've got time to figure out, what your sexual orientation will be as you grow up and discover who you are.
Do you remember what you were feeling at the moment when she first told you that she was queer?
I was surprised that she used that word, queer, because to me, queer has always been a very derogatory term towards gay people. Mm-hmm. All my gay friends would say they were gay, but there was a slogan in the 80s where they would say, I'm queer, we're queer, we're here, get used to it. But that wasn't what queer is today. Mm-hmm. It feels like a different thing. So I was really like questioning her. I was kind of shocked that, I drop her off at the end of the day. She's declaring her sexuality to me in the back seat of the car. And at that time, my daughter and I had such an open communication that she felt comfortable enough to tell me that.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Open enough communication. Mm-hmm. Maybe you could just give us some background in terms of the schooling setup. Which school did your daughter attend? Just give us some background on that.
So she never went to school until 9th grade. So she was homeschooled from the beginning. And I used to consider myself an eclectic homeschooler. Math and science. I mean, science was really hands-on. History was kind of like we'd read about it and go live it. And, reading and writing and math were super important to me. But we lived really outside in the world with violin lessons, ballet lessons, climbing lessons. We were in the world. So she had a very broad upbringing and schooling. And then after the pandemic, wanted to go to public school for dance at a art school, but she decided not to. She wanted to have all of her hair short. She had her hair down to her waist when she was little. She wanted to be like Rapunzel. So the first week of public school, she had even told me then, she was still open to me. She's like, oh, people were asking me what my pronouns are. And I'm like, why are they asking you that? Like, who cares about that? And she just said, I said, so what did you say? She's like, anything. I'm like, okay, that's weird. Because I didn't know that in public school that teachers ask for the kid's preferred name and pronoun, or that they socially transition kids. So like that week, I was being a nice mom and cleaning her room. And what I thought were art books were actually books that she had written about how she wanted to come out, that she was trans, that she wanted a double mastectomy, she wanted testosterone, she needs to pick a name. She wants to go to a mental institution, that she was cutting, that she was feeling suicidal, wanting to jump off a bridge. And so this was I was just like,
So this is so much and so overwhelming as a parent to
yes.
read. So tell us a bit about what kind of that was like for you to just all of a sudden discover
It
all
was
this.
frightening. It was frightening. It was frightening because she drew parts of her body all cut up. It wasn't even like a whole body, it was just bloody. And all I can think of is what is she exposed herself to? Um, why does she want to go to a mental hospital? Why is she cutting? Why is my beautiful girl cutting herself? And I just said, okay, I've got to do a deep dive.
Yeah. Before we do the deep dive, sorry, I want to ask you something else.
Yes.
Over what period of time did you see these rapid changes taking place? Changes in terms of attitude, language use, terminology use?
I think during the pandemic is when she wanted to cut her hair. And at that point, I just thought, oh, she's had long hair her whole life. She just wanted to have short hair. I didn't see too much because she was really doing really well in concealing it. Because now when I look back, I can see, oh, is that why you wanted the big sweatshirts and the big grandpa stuff? Because you're starting to hide under this persona of hating the body. So I really wasn't aware. I was just like, oh, okay. Again, because I don't really care, like, wear what you want to wear. I just thought, okay, you want to wear ugly old grandpa sweaters, that's what you're into right now. So she wasn't using any language with me at all. Because she's always been quirky.
Yes.
She's always been like, I don't know if you know the designer Betsy Johnson.
Oh yeah, I know Betsy
Yes.
Johnson. Yeah.
So she would dress really eclectic because, in my life, I was always like, express yourself. My mom was very expressive. So I'm like, to me, all of the weird clothes was not like, I didn't think anything about it. And being an 80s girl, I was like, we just wore whatever. We didn't have an identity through our clothes.
Something else I would like to know is what made you decide to homeschool your children as opposed to sending them out to public schools?
So I had my son in kindergarten and first grade. And so he was bullied so severely. That was a huge decision. So I decided to homeschool him in second grade. She was still a toddler. She's 3 years younger than him. And it was how the public school treated me then. I was the crazy mom then, coming to them and going, these kids are bullying my kid, the teacher's bullying my kid. And it turned out that he is highly gifted. So they were treating him more like a kid that has ADD or ADHD, but he was just really, really, really bored. So I decided I never wanted to put my kid in public school again. Well,
so this was during the pandemic when you decided to send your daughter to a public school, and shortly after she started attending the public school, you started noticing changes in her appearance, and you just wrote that off as, this is my daughter, the typical quirky, artistic girl. She's 11 years old. I mean, this is the time of life where she's entering I suppose she's entering adolescence. Was she on time in terms of sexual development?
So was 14 when she started ninth grade. Um,
Mm.
she's always been, she's definitely on the more immature side.
Okay.
She's never had like her friends who were she had a friend that was very hypersexual when she was growing up. So she's always loved being a kid. Like
Mhm.
she declared, I love being a kid. I don't understand why kids don't want to be kids. It's so great to be a kid. So, and she's a voracious reader. So it was always odd for her to want to be sexualized as a child. And she still
Right.
has some issues when people date older people.
Mhm.
Um, so I think in her sexuality, she just it just wasn't there.
So would you say that she was a bit of a late bloomer compared to the rest of
Yes,
her
she
peers?
would definitely
Okay.
be a late bloomer.
Which
Mhm.
is interesting because the research has shown that late bloomers among boys take puberty and adolescence way more difficult compared to the early bloomers among boys, which is
Mm.
the opposite among girls. Earlier bloomers among girls find it harder to deal with puberty and the onset of puberty and adolescence compared to later onset puberty and adolescence. So it is interesting that even though she's a late bloomer, it is interesting to hear that as soon as she entered the school, then suddenly the issues around the onset of secondary sexual features started to bother her. And you ascribe it to possible influences at
Mhm.
the school.
I feel like, it's any teenage environment. Kids start
Mm.
dating. She's looking around. She really always wanted a group of friends because it's been hard for her to make friends. Um,
Okay.
she saw all the pockets of friends starting, and unfortunately, on the first day of school, this girl attached herself to my daughter, and everybody kind of thought that they were best friends, and my daughter would be like, never met her before until the first day of school. And so it was really hard for her to kind of get into the little groups that were forming. And I think too, with our kids, they're taught to be either, be kind, be inclusive, be an ally. So she's kind of sat back and watched how the groups were formed. She
Mhm.
sat back and watched how, like, oh, this teacher, he's really accommodating with the pronoun and names, because now I have like over 1,500 internal emails. And so out of those 1,500, I would say maybe 30 of them really are the core of when she took on the name and started socially transitioning herself at school. And it took about a year and a half with lots of arguments until now to get information out, because she would tell me that the teachers would lose their job if they were, to not call her the name. And I'm like, who told you that? Well, it turns out at a certain point, the principal of the school pulled her into her office because she was also struggling academically,
Mhm.
because it's a learning curve for a homeschool kid to come in and figure out the
Mhm.
dynamics of
Sure.
school and how to a new skill set. And she said that she heard that she's going by another name and that she's mandated not to tell me, and her teachers are also obligated not to tell me as well.
And this is in
So,
California, which makes a difference here in your story because it is not necessarily that way across the country, but it is that way
mhm,
in certain, right, some policies that are in place here that have
mhm.
made it such that the parent has less rights in certain ways than the kids do over themselves.
Oh, yes, especially here in California.
Yes, yes. So when you found the books and
Mhm.
you saw all of this information that was so overwhelming and at what point was that at a point where you started to say, okay, I've got to step in here, there's something here that's bigger that I need to respond to?
Absolutely. Once I saw that, I started scouring the internet. Like, I don't even know what words I put in other than, kids that think that they're this. And so, of course, the regular sites of P-Flag would show up, and it was all about affirming. I just kept finding affirming. And then I have a DuckDuckGo, which is another
Yes.
search engine.
Yeah.
That's a little less,
Yeah.
And so that's how I found a site called Fourth Wave Now. And then somehow or another, I stumbled on rapid onset gender dysphoria parents, and I started reading the stories. And you guys, I was just like blown away. I could just insert my daughter's name. It was like almost reading a script these kids learn either from influencers, from YouTube or TikTok, or it's like a script that they learn. And I was like, okay, this is what it is. And so I found the language, like non-affirming, and I read as much as I possibly could. I found Abigail Schreier's book,
Mm-hmm.
Irreversible
Irreversible
Damage. I watched
Damage.
yes, I watched a video with her and Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
And everything that I was feeling, I was like, okay, I'm not crazy. Like, I'm not alone
Mm-hmm.
in thinking this way. And I sat her down like 3 weeks later, and I said, I found this book, and we talked about that. And I said, I love you more than anything in this world. And I was deemed a geriatric mother when I got pregnant with her.
Mm.
We had babies late in our marriage, and I said I got an amniocentesis, so every cell in your body is female. You
Yeah.
can't opt out.
Yeah.
And I would appreciate for the next 4 years, while you're going to public school, you go by your birth name.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't really think it was that big of she acted like it wasn't that big of a deal.
Mm-hmm.
But I think once she realized that she could have the adults at school go against me, because that's what teenagers do, they rebel
Yes.
in some form or fashion.
Absolutely.
They
Naturally.
use what's available to them in their social circles to
Mhm.
weaponize against authority. That is what they do.
Yes, especially gifted kids. They love to buck up against authority. If you know about gifted kids, they're
Sure.
really like,
Right?
and
Right.
I've been the main source of her education, always mom, and now I can stick it to mom. She can't tell me what to do, but these people will let me do what I want to do.
Did she have that
Um,
same kind of response to your husband as she did to you?
he hadn't taken it as serious as I have. He's never read a book. He hasn't read the articles. He's not vocal like me. He's very private. I think
Sure.
dads, I see this is very common. Dads seem to think that, she's my little girl. It's just a fad. It's just a phase. They don't realize the repercussions of what keeping their kids stuck in. So he's always been supportive, but he's not been as vocal as me with her, going back and forth and laying the rules, because I've always been the one in charge with everything. While
Mm-hmm.
he's been the breadwinner, we've lived on a single income so that I could stay home and be
Right.
with the kids.
Right.
As you
Mhm.
talk, I just notice all the hallmarks of social contagion. Sudden
Mhm.
onset. I mean, you said she was never gender non-conforming. She was always comfortable in her little petite body. She always enjoyed dressing up. You said she enjoyed her hair as long
Mhm.
as Rapunzel's. And then during a time, that's another factor. During a time of social or environmental upheaval, people are very much susceptible to social contagion. It was during COVID,
Mhm.
but also developmentally, very sensitive and sensitive period, in her case, entering puberty and adolescence, with obvious difficulty from homeschool into public school, the social difficulties. The other factor would be the sex ratio. Social contagion usually affects women or girls more, way more compared to men. And then during a time when people in authority or people with the power of legitimacy, such as doctors or psychotherapists, they, what we call iatrogenically, facilitate the spread of the social contagion. You see, we always hear about this retort, inclusion, inclusion. We don't want to offend what they call trans kids. There's no such thing as a trans kid. You have a child with gender dysphoria. It's a child that's still on the trajectory of development. There's no such thing as a trans kid. You may have a trans adult, but you can't impose adults, stable adult categories onto a child. So we need to fix our language here. It's a child with gender dysphoria. And the lingo we oftentimes hear is we need to affirm, we need to facilitate. They're very sensitive. And for that reason, we want to be inclusive by asking them what their pronouns are. You see, it's a fine balance until the line is crossed, when we're no longer facilitating vulnerable kids. The line is crossed where we're actively spawning them. We're actively creating the development of gender dysphoria among kids. And it sounds to me like that was precisely what was happening with your daughter. They planted the possibility of a way out of her difficulty, her social and developmental difficulties, by creating this fairy tale alternative world of transgenderism, of queerness. Does that fit?
I absolutely agree with you, because they have the gender sexuality club at school.
Mm-hmm.
Now they call it the Pride Club. There is a picture of her in the yearbook from 9th grade with her sitting next to her autistic friend, looking at a screen that says asexual, aromantic.
Yes.
Now, if that's not behaviors of, they have like a teaching thing in California, looking for behaviors of grooming. If that is not sexually grooming my daughter to think that she can be the 31 flavors of the gender, spectrum, I don't know what is. And in that GSA club, she met an older girl that was a groomer, and she would use language I found in a message on her Instagram where she would say, they think us trans people are predators, but we're really not. And they were talking about a binder. This older girl who was a 12th grader last year gave my daughter a binder and talked about, oh, it really helps with dysphoria, and isn't it euphoric?
And the job of the binder, for those who aren't familiar with these terms, is to flatten the chest, right? The breasts from developing.
Yes.
So just to make that clear for those who may not.
And to damage the tissue.
Yes.
To damage the tissue and the glands and everything. Yep.
Yes. And she didn't like the way it felt. So the girl obliged her with tape to tape her breasts down. And now there is one breast that's larger than the other. And I don't know if within the last year, how long she was using the tape, if that contributed to, maybe it was always a little bit smaller, but maybe it would have like evened out just a little bit, not been so noticeable. So this girl had turned 18 during the school year, and we haven't got to where I tried to I have a meeting with the teacher, but before that, it was the end of 9th grade that this very slippery biology teacher, that's a whole long story in itself, because she was struggling academically. This guy is the guy that does the health class. So I had to learn early on to play kind of dumb with these people. And I would say, so do you teach the gender stuff in the health class? And he's like, yes. And I said, oh, well, what does that consist of? So he sent me some of the paper that they fill out the quizzes and stuff, and it asked like, what are the 3 genders, and And so I found out that you can opt out of the sex ed part, but you can't opt out of the gender, but they're together. So I opted her out of that, and I'm really, really grateful. And he seemed kind of put off that I opted her out and acted very strange about the work that he gave her. She ended up getting a D in his class. He's one of those people that are very sly and very good at talking circles around you. He's very charming. He's charmed everybody around him. When I met him in person, I felt that energy from him. He talks really fast, almost so fast that it's talking at you and around you. And so at the end of the year, when he put the name on there, I asked her about it, and she said, I don't know how that got there. She at that point she chose a boy's name.
Yeah.
Oh.
So from the internal emails that I have, it's she is her birth name from August to January, and then around January is when I see the teachers accommodating the name that she's decided to go by. So from January to the end of the year, all the teachers are calling her this name, and he decided to put it like in writing on a school project. And she denied that it was her, and I said, well, if it's not you, then who is it? Because there's only 2 other people with that last name, and they're twin boys. And so I emailed him and I asked him, and he said that the kids can use a nickname as long as it goes along with their student ID. And I said, well, that's not either of her nicknames. So if not you, then who? And he said, well, I'll just go out as an administrator and take it off. So that's the end of 9th grade. During the summer, I discover on Instagram with all of her friends calling her the boy name and calling her a fag and a faggot and just really derogatory stuff. And I said, you can't deny it anymore. And you need to stop when you go back to school. And I'm going to talk to the principal and your teachers at the beginning of 10th grade. So school starts in 10th grade. I ask to sit down with the principal and the teachers, to ask them to stop calling her this name. The principal sends me back an email. It takes quite a while, and says that she can't accommodate a meeting because of AB 1266. And here in California, the law AB 1266 was set in place at around 2014. It became law. It was put together by the Gay Caucus, and it was supposed to accommodate kids in sports and bathrooms. And in there, it talks about if a teacher sees a gender nonconforming kid, or what they call it, air quote, a trans kid, that they can pull them aside privately and talk to them, but also with the parents and what's going on in home. And so I think the state of California also talks about the education that they don't have. This says that they don't have to tell us, but I know from my lawyer and 2 other lawyers that actually the law does not state that they can conceal and deceive a parent. That the child cannot demand the teachers to call them by this other name. So they denied me that meeting. And I was like, okay, I've got to have some parental rights somewhere.
My goodness.
I got to
the cheek.
hold. Yeah. So somebody connected me with somebody with the organization from FAIR.
Oh, yes.
Are you familiar? Yes.
I'm familiar with FAIR. I worked for them for a while. Yeah.
Oh, great. So you probably know the person.
Yeah.
And they were very helpful in like, okay, well, you got to ask for the district gender support plan, ask for your educational records, which really the educational records don't mean anything. It's the support plan.
Yeah.
So I asked for that and everything. I didn't know at that time, I should have said the specific name, but I said the word fake name. I don't consent to you calling her this other name. I never changed it legally. Found FERPA. In FERPA, they have wonderful little videos that say they have to comply within 45 days to give the parent their educational records and stuff. So I just sent all this stuff back to them highlighted.
What is
And
FERPLA?
then I got the FERPA is the Federal Education Parents' Rights Act. So it's
I
our
see.
parental rights.
Mhm.
I see.
And
So
that's,
you really
Yes.
made use of legislation that was available for the
Hmm.
sake of the protection of your child and the protection of you as
Hmm.
parent, as custodian of your child. You really made use of the legislation available to you.
Hmm. As much as I
Okay.
could,
yeah.
because they really
Okay.
made it to where they're trying to X us out as parents. As soon as your kid walks through that door, um, what I've discovered through talking with the lawyer and stuff, and they've been talking about that why they ask for our kids' preferred name and pronoun, it's to unofficially emancipate that child from the family.
Wow.
And
Unofficially emancipate.
Emancipate.
So it's a
Yeah.
form of abduction. It's a form of kidnapping.
Yes.
And we know from
yes.
biblical stories to so many other stories and folk tales, we know these typical figures who swoop in and steal kids and abduct kids. I just think in terms of
Hmm.
fairy tales, the Ratcatcher of Hamelin, the Pied Piper. Who did the
Yes.
Pied Piper seduce into following him? The kids.
Yes.
Biblical stories and the Christian stories. Who's the one jumping over the wall to steal the lambs, to steal the sheep? It's the thief. It's a thief in the night. So these people are actually embodying these figures of wolves snatching children, very slickly snatching children out of the clutches of their parents.
And
It
so
is absolutely astonishing. It
it's
is
a,
perverse.
it's perverse. And so as you're going through this, your experience of you're looking up these laws, you're trying to seek out outside. Can you tell us a little bit more about the process and what that was like for you internally as you're trying to kind of save your daughter from the grips of this evil? And you're looking up laws and you're trying to figure out meetings. I mean, that can't have been an easy process for you as a parent trying to protect their kid, which is all you wanted to really do.
I would say it's literal hell. Every day you wake up and you cry for your kid.
Oh.
You're thinking, you know, here you are. You've loved this child more than anything. You've wanted them, you've protected them, and you want them to have this opportunity, this education. Um, it feels very like you're on a tightrope because if you that one step, you're gonna fall. And in my heart, I'm like, I know, I know that I have some power as a parent, and these people aren't going to get away with what they're doing. And and people would say, well, it's just easier. Just why don't you just pull her out? But hey, it happened in homeschool, so there really isn't any safe place.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like if I could do this for my kid, then I can help other parents that are don't know this is happening. And I could be a different Pied Piper. Let me show you the way how to fight the system. I think because that comes from being a Californian, really growing up in a feminist,
Yes.
all around these really amazing, strong women growing up that like, hey, you know what? No,
Yeah.
you
You're
don't
not
get
being
to
a
do
Pied Piper.
anything to my kid.
Yes.
You're not being a Pied Piper. You're being a parent. You're being a
Mama
mother.
bear.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
the mama bears that instinct of protection, of reclaiming what is yours.
Yes.
That
Mm-hmm.
is what you did.
Yes. And I just knew in my heart that I'm right and they're wrong, and she's mine, and she's just there to learn. They really want in our kids' brains, man, like the
Mm.
social emotional learning,
Oh, yes.
um, all these mood things, all these social workers, all this wellness room. It's really
And so, where are things at with your daughter today and where you're at with the school today?
today she's showing signs of desisting
Hmm.
because I did push back so much. I pushed back the year when they denied me a second meeting. I went to a school board meeting and asked, like, how do I get a meeting? Um, and so I met a board member that's on our side. And I think I might have been the catalyst of the one gay board member of leaving, because I talked about how this is pseudoscience and the ultimate gay conversion with our kids. And I tried to push back that year and have her tell them not to call her by the other name. But I have an email where she goes against me as a mom and says, call me by the name at school, but had put the birth name on everything else. So she was almost, kids like to have a little control and power in their life, like everybody, right?
Sure.
And these people are like, oh, well, we'll accommodate that. So I knew that the most important thing with her and I was to keep our relationship. So we watched a lot of crummy TV together. This one show, 190 episodes of Riverdale. And I lucked out, and I have a friend who's actually her husband knows them. So I got a picture for her 16th birthday with happy birthday to her and her birth name and happy birthday girl. And so I said, okay, if these people are love bombing her, I'm going to love bomb her as a mom, because she's a highly sensitive person, just like me. I'm a highly sensitive empath. So I think highly sensitive kids, are easily, swayed. I made a promise to her when she was 7. She wanted me to take her to Paris. I used to be an actress, and I'm still friends with my Parisian friends, and we made friends with a lovely British family, moved to Thailand during the pandemic. So like, we're going to meet them in Paris, and then we're going to go to London. And I'm like, I'm going to take my daughter out of the country for 20 days.
That's fantastic.
Just her and I. So just for her to be us together. There's some circumstances that happened within 9th and 10th grade. And she dated a boy who said he was a girl. And then now she's with a girl that says she's a boy. And so I feel like those people just really kind of keep her, held down while I'm holding on the other side. But I think that time with her and I was super important. Again, that keeping that relationship. And I just put my foot down and said, when we go back in 11th grade, if you ask for the name again, I'm pulling you out. And I had 3 meetings with the superintendent and at that point, and the assistant superintendent. And again, in the internal emails, that the assistant superintendent is on I would like to say my shit list because she really was very instrumental in going against me, and all the way up to the teachers union president. They all got together and had meetings. They put so much energy in socially transitioning my kid without my consent than they did when she was struggling academically. That's our reading levels down here in California, even across our nation. Parents are pulling their kids out. They just had a meeting like 2 weeks ago that enrollment is down, maybe because they're spending so much time, this social transition. And once I got them to stop, it's like a lift, a light has been like a heaviness has been taken off. And she'll even say like, oh, I'm untouchable. They can't talk to me because they have to deal with my mom. Where 2 years ago, she didn't want them to deal with her mom at all.
That's huge progress.
Yeah. She's wearing press-on nails and makeup and just doing girly things. Like, to me,
she's a girl.
Not that has to, she has to be, she doesn't have to be ultra feminine, but it's nice to see that she can wear whatever clothes she is, and there's no identity to the clothes that day. It's just her expressing herself.
Yes. What's the single most important advice you would give to parents who are in the throes of this and don't know what to do?
Never give in to affirming your child, because if you give in, then the gender ideology wins.
Right.
I'm lucky that my daughter never demanded, because I know some kids are much more demanding. And also, parents are so afraid to fight with their kids.
Yeah.
And also, I know you guys would do therapy. For me, I did therapy twice with her, and it didn't work out.
Mm.
And therapy is like, you have to vet that therapist if you want
time.
therapy
Oh,
for your
yeah.
kid.
100%.
I'm taking the other route of parenting my kid.
Yes.
That
Very good.
therapists are important, but you don't have a superhero cape. You have the
That's right.
capability to help us reframe the way that we look at things.
Right.
And so what I'm seeing from my perspective, I think sometimes the therapy should be for the parent first and
Yes.
maybe the child.
Yes.
Right.
Because we need the language to
Yes.
talk to our kids.
Yes.
Because was reading Stella O'Malley's book,
Oh, yeah. She's great.
what are teens trying to ask
Mhm.
you? And there was something that really stuck with me. I'm like, okay. So when my daughter's complaining about something, don't try to fix it.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Listen like a therapist
Uh-huh.
and say, that must be really difficult for you.
Yeah.
I'm
Recognize
sorry
the
you feel
struggle.
that way.
Recognize the
Mm.
struggle, validate
Yes,
that.
yes.
Mm.
I think
Without making them right.
our generation of people, especially I'm at 55, so the Gen Xers, we're almost over therapized at this moment.
Yes.
We kind of lost our way of being a parent, that it's not easy,
Yeah.
that we can be a parent and a friend when they grow up. I always tell my kids, I'm not your friend.
Yes.
I'm your parent first. And then when you're like, 25, 30, we can be friends.
Yeah.
You see, what you did right was, first of all, you spent enough time with your daughter to notice certain changes taking place. Of course, you kept it open enough not to jump to conclusions too quickly, because you thought, well, maybe she's just being arty. But because you spent so much time with her, you started noticing eventually that this was way beyond just being artistic. And then, when you noticed that the trouble is serious enough, you took ownership of who you were, and that is a parent who would be held responsible for raising a child that was theirs to raise, not someone else's to raise. And you were assertive and you were clear and you made use of the networks and the resources available to you. You took your stand and you fought to rescue your child from the clutches of the cradle snatchers. And you persisted.
Do you see that resilience in yourself?
I do. I mean, this has been such a wonderful talk with both of you. I love your inquiry, your analogies to it. I mean, it's really, it fills me my well as a parent.
Oh,
It's
such a pleasure and really an honor to share with you your story and what you've been through. And, just it's heroic. It's heroic. I don't say that lightly.
Yeah.
There's a meme that I found that it says she needed a hero, so I had to be one.
Yeah.
Our children need a hero,
Yes.
and it's us.
Yes.
Yes.
It's not the government. It's not our teachers, because here in my district they had a great big huge board meeting. I like to give myself a pat on the back that I was the pebble in the shoe. I was the first one to come and say, hey, we need parental notification. I've got this rough draft from GenSpec. It has notes on it. Like, it was exciting to, like, I get to see how this was laid out.
Yeah.
And I said, I could present it to you, and we could be the first in California to have parental notification. And they just ignored me. They sent a letter from the lawyer and said it goes against the law. And I'm like, obviously it didn't, because they did it in Chino.
Yeah.
And they just did it in Temecula here. Judge just declared that they can have parental notification. And
Excellent.
so to see what's disturbing is, I call them the Genderborg, the glitter parents. I mean, we had priests, pastors, parents, therapists, all screaming that it's a forced outing and that the teachers, that they're more important than the parent, that the kids are so afraid to tell the parent that they're going to commit suicide, they're going to run away from home.
Yes.
They're going to, it's going to be all, I always tell my kids, I go, those parents that kick their kids out or beat them up, they were going to do it for some other reason. Doesn't really,
that's right,
have to do with that. But this whole idea that the teacher is more important than the parent is bizarre to me.
Lydia, are you connected?
Mm-hmm.
Are you part of a network? Tell us a bit more about the network or the networks you're part of. Maybe it might be helpful to some of our listeners.
Oh yeah. So I always, I don't know if you know the Tootsie Pops. Like there was a commercial when we were growing up about this owl and he was eating a Tootsie Pop. How many licks does it take to get to the center?
I remember
So
that because I counted once when I was a little kid.
So I feel like I was on the outer rim, out of the center, and now it's so crazy that I'm in the center of the Tootsie Pop. Like last week, I got to be in a Zoom with Stella O'Malley, and
very nice. So
the resources for parents, GenSpect is a wonderful resource for parents, and listening to a gender, a wider lens.
Yes.
If you need support, we have two. There's one here in the US, Our Duty, and there's one in the UK, Our Duty. And they have a thing where they can help you find a support group. I am now a support group leader. I help other parents that are just, finding themselves in this mess or have been in the mess and they're panicking because the kids just turned 18. So there's ROGDK parents, there's Our Duty, and then here in California, I'm super excited. We just started Protect Kids California. And so I'm working with Aaron Friday and Jonathan Zackerson, who started it, and we're out collecting signatures. I was out at Walmart the other day. It's very interesting who will stop and give me their signature, and others. One lady screamed, "I'm a Democrat." I said, "I'm a liberal Democrat that doesn't believe in mutilating children."
Right.
Come on down. like it's a partisan issue.
Yes.
So we're doing that, Protect Kids California, and I just found out another wonderful mom who's found herself in the same situation as me. Her name's Erin Lee in Colorado, has started a Protect Kids California. I held a Twitter space with her and another mom, January Littlejohn, who also, her daughter was transitioned, and they're on the lucky side. Their daughters have desisted.
Wonderful.
Wow.
So I always feel like the universe is working to kind of open up my way. And I was at a private party last year and I met Buck Angel.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yes.
Yes. And people either love her or hate her because of her past.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was talking to somebody at FAIR, and I was just the first week of coming off my first school board meeting with the lawyer saying, if you don't affirm your daughter, the CPS can take her out of your home. So I was really in a fragile, weird place. Yeah. And this lady in FAIR said, "Oh, you should talk to that mom over there." Buck comes over and we start talking, and gosh darn it, she's really likable. And, she's very honest. She says she has a disorder. She didn't trans herself until she was 30. She doesn't believe in kids transing themselves. Yeah. Her and I did a video last year, but I was still very in a nervous place, so it was never aired. But it was good to sit and talk to her for an hour.
Yes.
Because I think too, as parents, it's really frightening to think about the future of our kids being medicalized. You know, they always say, oh, well, when they're 18. Me personally, I would love for it all to be banned. You know, I really like Buck, but I would have loved for her to just be a beautiful butch lesbian.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that's just my opinion. She's happy the way she is, but the way that society is now, I think the genie's out of the bottle. I don't know if we'll ever be able to end it. I think we'll be able to end it for children.
Yes.
We'll be able to get it out of the school. It's a medical malpractice. It's a medical scandal. And if my daughter down the line decides to do that to herself, as scary as it is, I'm always going to love her. And so the trans activists, I'm sorry, you don't get to say that we don't love our children.
No.
But right now I'm going to fight tooth and nail to keep her whole.
That's right.
Yeah, you do that.
Yes.
You do that. Thank you so much for your time.
Lydia,
Thank you
thank
for your
Thank
passion
you.
It was such a
and the
pleasure.
fire.
Appreciate your time.